Good evening. My name is Dr. Eli Calvin. Today, we're going to talk about water. You heard me right. Water. This is an essential commodity and a very vital commodity indeed. Water is necessary for very many functions, and today, particularly, we're going to talk about water, the use of water in our bodies. The major organs in our body, that's the heart, the brain, liver, and kidney, needs water almost entirely for their function. We might not know this, but the organ that uses water most in our body is the kidney. It is at the kidney where absorption and reabsorption happens. Our bodies are cleansed through the kidneys. Reabsorption happens when some of the water is taken back to the body for other functions, and the waste product comes out via the ureter to the bladder and eventually out of the body in form of urine. I don't know if you know this, but even your brain, that many people don't think brain contain water, 73 to 85% of the brain is actually water. So water is very important. However, there's something I've been thinking. Should we classify water as a commodity or a basic human need? If it's a basic human need, is it possible by any chance that we stop selling water and water becomes a basic need, and therefore it should be free for everyone? Free for everyone. Now, I'm going to involve a few friends and I'm going to put this in form of a debate. Do you agree that water should be classified as a human need? That water should not be sold? That even in our houses, the water that run through our taps, we should not be billed at the end of the month? That the water that we get from the taps, for those who fetch water in the taps or wherever we get water, that we should stop bottling of water and selling water. Water should be free. And it should be the role of every government worldwide to ensure that water is available to all people free. And I'm not referring to water that is used in production of electricity and the likes and the likes. I'm here basically talking about water that is consumed by the human being. And animals. Animals also need water, and is a basic requirement for them as well. So I'll send this question to a friend of mine, Miriam. Miriam, what is your opinion? Do you think water should be sold really? Or should water be given freely? Other than air we breathe, the other thing that we really need as human beings is water. To our viewers, we are throwing the same question to you. Please write it down there in the comment section.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Eli, for engaging me into this very sensitive conversation. I understand that water is important in our lives as human beings and also to animals. So, unlike the air, which is naturally abundant and available, we don't need to process the air. We don't need to collect the air for us to use it to breathe in. But when it comes to water, water has a cost. And the cost begin from collecting the water from its sources, treating it, packaging it, and delivering or distributing it. So definitely all these processes cost money, and it comes in a cost. Also, when according to WHO, each and every person needs 100 no, $30, yes, to $100 for maintenance in a year, you know. So when you come to think about it, for you to consume clean water, for you to have to consume water that meets the body standard that is safe for you to drink, it goes through a process, and this process comes with a cost. So, should water still be given for free, or it should still be paid for? Also, on the other hand, if we decide that water should be distributed for free, the government of any country is going to have a heavy burden upon these projects or this distribution, make to ensure that each and every person accesses water to drink. Uh, it is clean. It is safe to drink. So are we going to let them struggle, let the government struggle to give us clean water, or we are going to take part to make sure that um, that water is safe for us? Okay, so I will say according to the cost needed, because that is where I think my point really relies on the cost, and also maintenance. We need to maintain the infrastructure that holds water, that distributes water. We also need to pay for workers, because definitely the water is not processing itself, is not distributing itself. There are workers in between who have families they need to feed. We also have the government, that they need part of these taxes to make sure that they can maintain that collection of water, that to sustain, to sustain the distribution of water, of safe water. Okay, the other thing is that if people are given free things, they tend to misuse them. You know, we take free things for granted. So I would like to emphasize on this, that uh, people may overuse, undervalue, and also misuse free water. I wouldn't care how I'm using that water, because definitely I'm getting for free. So there is no cost, there is no pain that I'm feeling misusing this water. So I will urge that people can take part of paying, even if it's a small percentage. They take part into this water distribution. Also, the last thing is that if 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 people paying for the water is can become a huge problem. I would say if someone has the ability and capability to pay that small percentage to make sure the delivery of safe water, then we can also have a targeted subsidies, that we have the poorest and the people who are vulnerable, that they cannot access, uh, they cannot pay for the water, and those people can be given the water for free. And I think that will be fair for everyone. Uh, we will help out the government to avoid burdening it with the whole cost. We will also, people will have discipline, because if I know my money is taking part of uh, the water reaching me safely, then I would use the water with a lot of caution. So thank you so much, Dr. Ili. Back to you in the studio.
Uh, Thank you so much for those who are contributing so far on this topic, water. And we've seen the uses of water and how vital it is in the human body. But let us also look at it at a wider perspective, a more broadened perspective. Water is also needed in industries. Water is needed by in agriculture. Water is needed in everything. Now I'm joined by a researcher, Juliet, who will also like to contribute her opinion on this topic.
Hey, thank you so much, Dr. Eli, for inviting me to contribute, to participate in today's conversation on whether water, whether it should be made easily available and accessible to everybody. And I mean everybody in the whole world, because it's a basic need, or whether it's okay to make water a commodity and to sell it to humans, right? So that's the conversation that we are having today. You know, this is a very, very interesting topic. We tend to overlook the importance of water in our day-to-day lives. You know, it's only when you don't have access to water. Like, imagine if you're somewhere in the desert and you don't have water. That's when you realize, whoa, it's such an important, like really, really important thing to have. But most of the times, especially when you live in an area where it's so easy to have access to clean water, you tend to take it for granted, and you tend to forget that there are people who live in places, like we see people losing their lives when there's drought, you know, like there's extreme drought, so people don't have water, and unfortunately they lose their lives. But when you have it, you take it for granted, you know. So for that reason, it's a really interesting topic to talk about. And also it's also interesting because the key aspects of our lives, water carries so much importance when it comes to our bodies, as you mentioned, as you talked about, like the human brain, our bodies. I don't know so much about the human body from a medicine perspective. I just know the general knowledge, but I've heard that I think almost like 70% of the human body is made up of water. You see, so it's such an important thing. So my take is, in an ideal society where things are working the way that they're supposed to, where there is proper allocation of resources. So in an ideal society where things are working, you know, water is supposed to be free. It's supposed to be clean water for consumption. It's supposed to be free. It's supposed to be easily accessible, easily available to everybody. That's my take. In an ideal world, I would say that water should be easily accessible to everyone, should be available to everybody for consumption. But because we don't live in an ideal society, kwa ground vitu kwa ground the way they are, there are so many factors that complicate everything. Like for instance, if we know that we sell water, you'll find that people who come from underprivileged homes, they can't afford water. Imagine being so broke you can't even afford water to cook your dinner. You would think that it's such an easy topic to talk about. It's so simple, you know, it's either this or that. But when you actually take time to think about it, it's not as easy, because as I said before, each side has its own valid points. Now, here's the thing. I think that when it comes to why some people think that it is okay to sell water as a commodity, it's because of the process that goes into making water safe for consumption in a household, especially us who live in the cities. You know, it's different for people who live in the rural areas versus us who live in the cities. So it's kind of different, because then they have access to rivers, you know, when it rains they can collect that water. If you're in the city, where are you going to get like a river? Okay, there are some, but even the ones that are there, honestly, because as humans, as I've said again, we've refused to to act right. So we sometimes we pollute these rivers, you know. So also another point that I wanted to add is, where does water come from? You know, water is a natural resource given to us by God through, like, or whichever whichever power you believe in. Personally, I believe in God, so I'm gonna say it's a natural resource given to us by God. So he gave us water through things like rivers, when it rains, but now unfortunately, because of industrialization and the many activities that we are doing as humans, we continue to destroy the beautiful things that God gave us. You see, like, because of over pollution, now rivers are drying, it's no longer raining as much, and when it does, it floods, so it doesn't even help anyone, so for that reason, I feel like industries now, here we'll introduce another concept of households versus industries. So as a household is like an individual, like a small household. Then in that case, even if we are charging people for water, it should be a really reasonable fee, because again, we have to understand it's not everybody who is wealthy, and as we said, water is a basic need. Nobody can live without water. By the way, I hear that you can live for up to, I think, 30 days without food, but water, 3 days you're gone. So yeah, it should be, even if we are charging, it should be a very small fee. But for companies and industries, those ones, they should be held accountable. They should be responsible, especially for the environment, because now once we start to release all these gases into the atmosphere, they ruin the environment. So now our rivers are drying up, it's flooding, all that stuff. So yeah.